Hello.
Hey, long time no see.
It's been months since KubeCon, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I was talking to Gphy and he was like, "It's like I miss one KubeCon," and he's like, "I have no idea what's going on anymore."
Yeah. Yeah, there were. It was an interesting KubeCon. Let's put it this way. Uh, how is the jet lag for all of you?
It, I think my problem was I also got like a little sick.
E-
Uh,
Everyone got sick. Everyone that I talked to got sick except me.
so yeah. I know Duffy caught COVID. I didn't catch
Oh
COVID.
shit.
I did all my tests and I tested negative over a few days. Um, again, it's like I thought like I've been talking for the past week and yelling and yada yada. So I had like a sore throat, and then a couple of days later, I was like, "Oh no, I'm sick," and I'm feeling better now. But yeah.
Uh,
So that messed with my jet lag a little bit. It took me. I'm just now getting feeling better.
yeah. All right. Oh yeah, docs. Meeting doc. Meeting doc.
Give it just another couple minutes here.
Yeah. Uh, to be honest, I canceled the tech operational resilience meeting today because there were so many people who are still not around. And I was like, yep, we are now following TOC and waiting for people to come back to office. And it's also this week is Easter week starting in Europe, so a lot of European folks are either on vacation or will go on vacation this week or the other week.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. My other community meetings have been lightly attended,
And it's post KubeCon. Everyone is done with talking.
right? You need a break. All right. Well, nonetheless, we'll go ahead and get this kicked off so we can get all the usual stuff out of the way and then get into the fun stuff. Um, just a quick reminder that this meeting is being recorded and posted to LFX and YouTube shortly after. Your participation in these meetings is an agreement to abide by the Cloud Native Code of Conduct, which can be found in the repo. I need at least one person to volunteer as scribe. Please just feel free to throw your name in the list below. Otherwise, we'll just try and follow back up with any, I'd say, information for posterity for anybody who wants to come back and read this. And then for anybody joining us today, I don't see any new names. I recognize all of you. But if you'd like, please add yourself to the list of attendees. And if you have any agenda items or updates, please indicate as much so we can make sure that that gets covered in the meeting. Don't see any new members today. Is anybody, if you wanted to give a shout out or a introduction or reintroduction, just feel free to raise your hand. All right. With that said, Mario, I think you are our primary topic of the day besides general check-ins, and so I'll hand it over to you for C-bomb.
Yeah. Thank you very much. the reason why I put this in is Jeffrey Sika and me had last year long talks about supply chain for CNCF and how we do this and how we centralize this, especially in terms of things that the foundation might need to do regarding regulatory stuff. And we figured out, or we are still figuring out a way to mass produce SBOMs. Currently, we are limited a little bit to Go-based projects and sub-projects. We are also fiddling around with other languages and also with generating SBOMs for build processes, artifacts, and container artifacts, and so on and so forth. So there is still some work to do, and what we early figured out is that it's nice when you have SBOMs. Nobody will read them. We need a way to analyze this. Back last year, I had extensive discussions also with Michael Lieberman about this because of GWAC and the maintenance of GWAC, and I'm very, very thankful for all of the input that I got from you. Yeah, then basically Giphy and I had a mad idea, or Giphy had an idea and I had some mad hours, a couple of mad hours or days. Let's put it's days, not hours anymore. And I created a tool called CBAM. What is CBAM? Basically, the idea behind CBAM, and now let me figure out where I can share my screen. And I made a presentation because everyone likes presentations. Basically, the idea behind CBAM is to create a tool that is ingesting SBOMs. Currently, it's limited to SPDX 2.3 JSON files. There, I plan, or we plan to add more other formats like Cyclone DX, the new SPDX formats, old SPDX formats. One thing that is not in here, we also support now in Toto generated SPDX SBOMs, which is nice. And it's basically ingesting them into a ClickHouse database, so not the whole SBOM, but it takes the SBOM and then it looks through all of the data of the SBOM, looks for vulnerabilities of packages that are currently in there, and it looks for licenses. So we are basically scanning licenses. We are using, or it's using OSV for the licenses. Potentially, a next move will be that it also just imports the whole OSV database into its ClickHouse installation, so that we don't have to query this also often. And I extensively using the GitHub API. The main reason why I use the GitHub API is when you have dependencies, and mainly like in Go, people tend to don't put the license in the top of each file, which makes it hard if you have a submodule. And also they tend to add licenses that are mostly an official license, like it's mostly an Apache license, but they put in some extra characters, some extra signing, and like names and stuff like this. And then I basically try to figure out the license data that I get from GitHub. So it can run without a GitHub token, but let's put it this way, and I will show you soon when I show you the UI. You are doing a lot of GitHub calls, so even the 5,000 calls per hour is a little bit limiting. There's an alternative way around this, so you can create an application, then you have 15,000 calls per hour. Depends, of course, on the data. I think I went to an extreme because I for the test that I'm currently running, I'm ingesting over I think currently I'm at 8,500 SBOMs that have been generated for CNCF projects. It also supports OpenVex, which means that you can basically add a VEX files to it, and it will then highlight the severity of a CVE and the impact that you have. And I now talk without changing slides where all of this would have been written down. The ingester works from it needs the SBOM files obviously, and the VEX files. They can be either in an S3 bucket. They can also be directly pulled out of a GitHub or a Git repository, or they can be on a local or can be on a volume, either local for development environment or on a volume inside of a Kubernetes cluster. So we have like an installation for Helm, or that you can install with Helm in a Kubernetes cluster, or you can run it locally on a kind cluster. There's also make files to start the setup locally in kind, or there's also a make file for starting it in Docker Compose. So you can also use Docker Compose locally. How does this look like? So this is basically the UI. It's an Angular front end, and with Go as backend. There are a couple of components. So there's an API component that is basically getting the data. There is an ingester. There are ingester workers who are just basically doing the ingestion and enriching the data. There's a watcher that is scanning for new CVEs, which usually runs once a day. This can be changed from a timing perspective. And there's an initial ingester that is basically, or there's like a job ingester that is being called when you ingest new data, or if the cron job is running for scanning for new CVEs and to enrich this. As I mentioned, I also have a lot of licensing stuff that I'm looking for, but there we will get into a second. So that's my local environment. I currently have 126 SBOMs ingested. It found in those SBOMs the 2,500 vulnerabilities. They have all different status based on OSV. It also is basically looking for licenses, but let's have a look first in the SBOM. So let's take one of the projects. I don't know, Cilium. Cilium is good, looking good. So we're looking, for example, at the Cilium version 1.17.10. When we open this, it basically gives you the overview of the vulnerabilities, which package is basically affected by those, that is currently in the release. It also says what licenses the project is using. You see that we still have false positives. This should be fixed in the next release, because I do a more deep dive into GitHub. So basically, why this happened is the tool that I use for the generation of those SBOMs sometimes has false positives because it's using Go license, and Go license is unfortunately no longer maintained, and then it's writing Pixar into some of those. But CBOM will enhance this in the future, because I have some licenses that I see ever so often that are false, and this are basically then will be rescanned via GitHub. You also can see that we have a copyleft license in here, which is the MPL no copyleft exception, and you see that it's exempted. That is basically the funny part. So you have the ability to give it exemptions. So you can basically give licenses exemptions that are accepted into your system, which means that it is basically a JSON file that you just provide as a config map to CBOM, and then it basically can say, okay, this package is exempted for all of the SBOMs. Those SBOMs or those projects can have those specific exemptions. And because this is built for the CNCF, it follows their exemption JSON declaration, or like the structure of the document. I'm open for any other suggestions, or how we also can basically give exemptions for specific packages, but having it in a JSON file is I think, good idea, because at least for CNCF, we are at over 150 exemptions or something like this. So this can be basically grow into larger scopes. When you go over to licenses, you also can see all of the packages that you have, and you can see like, where do I have a non-compliant package? You see the non-compliant package, and you see which project is affected by this, with which version. So I can basically then jump directly to the version and see like, okay, those licenses there, we have two exempts that are fine, but we have one that is not okay. And it also lists you all of the dependencies that it's currently using with the version. Another thing that it will do is it will show you if a dependency is archived. So you see this small archive button here, and when I go on the overview page, you also see like 3 GitHub repositories detected in your dependency that are archived. And then you can basically see, okay, what are GitHub repositories that have been moved to archived, which are still actively used in specific versions of your projects or of your topics. We are currently working on the roadmap, what new features should get added to this, and what we should also include. So you can already go for look for CVEs and basically see which projects are affected in which version by the CVE. You see also the WEX statements, and the WEX statements are then also listed with, has it been fixed, which project would have been affected, with what version. There I'm also open to any suggestions how to do this. The front end can be completely styled, so you can upload a custom SCSS or CSS file to style it. That's a good question. The WEX statements you need to provide. So that's something that CBOM is not taking care of. We are currently, because I want to have a separation from CBOM is for displaying data and enriching data, and not so much for generating data. That's something that I really would like to separate, because I feel that especially with WEX, you need to. It's a whole different story, right? You need to do it for every language. You need to maintain this, and I'm still looking into this on how to do this on a scale when you have like 8 to 10,000 SBOMs, and when do I stop? You know what I mean? Yeah, CVE impact, you can look for a CVE. That's basically just the reverse view of this. You can see all of the licenses, and yeah, that's it. And basically, yeah, you can style this. You can add your custom text to this, so you can also change this and change the disclaimer and add links to this, so it's fully customizable. And yeah, this can run basically anywhere that has a Kubernetes cluster, more or less, or Docker Compose if you want to run it with Docker Compose. And that's it. And it has a dark mode, because dark mode. Any questions?
I'm sorry, you might have said this earlier. Is this a Linux Foundation project, or?
It's not in any of the foundations yet. Oh, sorry, I wanted to share this. So basically, I set it up to be an Apache 2 project, which means that I started the contributing. So I prepared the project that it can be moved into a foundation. It is no company involvement from any side in this. There is, yeah, and it's fully on licensed to Apache 2. And another shout out to Michael Lieberman is thanks to Darnit, I was also basically able to add all of the stuff that is needed for an OpenSSF scorecard.
Yeah, I know we had briefly discussed about like maybe looking at OpenSSF for this to eventually land in.
Yeah.
You know, I'm only one member of the OpenSSF, but I could definitely say, hey, there's definitely interest here. And I think we might have even mentioned, I might have even mentioned like what you built was kind of this idea, you know, is similar to an idea I had called Mole, which was like trying to kind of take Guac and say, hey, what if you switched from a row-based data store and kind of doing it that way to more of a and graph sort of thing to more of like a columnar sort of thing, which again I think is really cool here. I can say that, you know, there's definitely interest, even if it's like, I don't know if it's as its own project or as like part of one of the other group. Yeah, anyway, we could definitely have those conversations there. You know, I definitely have interest in bringing this over to OpenSSF.
Yeah. The main reason, and then I get to you, Brent, is why I am presenting this is because we are looking into using this on a CNCF level, or looking into this to display some of the CNCF data. And also we are looking into, and yeah, I want to get input from tech security, because obviously that's something that is relevant for tech security for the projects. Brent.
Yes, my question is more, again, just trying to understand the full life cycle here. I see the project, and that seems kind of on the, as I interpret it, like the hosting and visualization side of things, like the data.
Yeah.
The data is somewhere, and now we have the ability to go and, evaluate it in some way.
Yeah.
Is that distinctly separated from how did the data get here?
Yes, it is completely separated. For those of you who are interested, when you dig into the depths of the CNCF GitHub account, you will find a tooling which is called SBOM, or a repo which is called SBOM, and for now we still have the SBOMs in there. We are currently moving them over into S3 because you should not use Git for having SBOMs, because it's a lot and it's large files, especially when you go into sub-projects and then have all of the stuff. And basically we are currently trying to auto-generate those SBOMs, but they are based on the source code of a tagged release. They are not currently the build artifacts. They are not currently the whole CI/CD SBOM. This is a whole other topic that we are looking into, but this is separate from CBOM. So basically it is, you could say it's like two projects, right? So one is the tooling for creating SBOMs. And the main reason, and then I will get back to the raised hands, is the main reason why we did this is when we scan through the CNCF projects, we see that only a small amount of projects actually generate SBOMs in their build process. I'm happy to use the generated SBOMs by the project. But for the other projects, this might be too much to do because it's a lot of work. And we are still figuring out what and how to do there, in terms of centralizing SBOM generation with the buy-in from the projects, and basically how deep need those SBOMs to go, like how many levels of dependencies do we want to go in depth, and how do we treat artifacts, including the build steps, what is with multi-arch builds, what is with multi-step builds, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think I'm next. I'll just quickly say because it dovetails into this. There's a project called SBOMIT that myself and Mike Lieberman and others are involved in that effectively is trying to solve that part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so we're like, we should talk about this because we've already made a lot of progress in that area. And we're already starting to poke around at CNCF projects and do this for them.
That would be great. Especially for the build, for the SBOMs for the build process, and any language outside of Go. Jennifer.
For the governance piece, I know you mentioned that it supports the way that the governing board expresses license exceptions.
Yes.
How else can that be? Is there any other support? Like how else, if I needed to like say put a bunch of organizational rules in here that I want like specific flagging behavior, how would I do that?
Yeah. Basically, you have and I hope I put it into the documentation. Basically, what you have is you can create a license exception JSON that is just specific for you, right? Where it's how your company is treating licenses, and then you can basically, and we are following just the format. So what we are currently following is this format, and this format is also not yet perfect because we have EPL or GPL2 only with ClassPath exception 2. So basically we are not there's still some room to improvement. Currently I'm following this structure. So if you create a document that is looking similar, this would work. But I'm also open for suggestions or requests on how to do this.
Cool. Yeah, that's helpful. I don't really know if it exactly. I'm working on a project in the OpenSSF called Jamara, where we're just trying to do governance documentation and expression.
Yep.
And I was just kind of curious if there's any overlaps or like complementary things here. So I might just send you some information about it and maybe play around with this and see if there's any way they could connect.
Happy to implement this. If especially if it's an OpenSSF project, I want to have this as good included in the larger LF ecosystem and use as much tooling as we already have. Like eventually, for example, also saying like, okay, I directly display the scorecard and stuff like this if it's a CNCF project or a project that follows the OpenSSF scorecard and so on.
Excellent.
Right. Brent.
Yeah, without trying to solution, I realize this is a new thing-ish, that you're, developing this rapidly, and that there's basically no end to the amount of possibilities of where this could go next. I kind of made the comment on like where a Vex statement sourced from, and I like using this group of people to crowdsource some of these ideas of like what's beyond just one technical implementation. What's the ideal like place to recommend things in such a way that they become discoverable, that they become, parsable and whatnot. And I think that my brain has been sitting in like, okay, I hear Vex. Awesome. I love the fact that we can like provide for this intersection here. And so I was poking around with, I think Vex Hub, and I saw like the recommendation of, okay, you put it in your .vex directory in your source repo, and then going back to what you said earlier, right? How were these getting generated? You took the source code for a tagged release, and you were using that to generate SBOMs, if I understood correctly.
Yes.
It seems like, okay, like now I'm seeing the web of like potential for, hey, we already have the source code. We already know where the directory is. If we can just guide people to, how to do some of these things. We don't want to maybe put that overhead on every single project, but when they cross this bridge and they're like, oh, we need to do X, how do we do it? I'm wondering just like how many best practices can come out of an initiative like this of like, we already do our SBOMs. Here's where do we put them so that we can coexist with these ecosystems. And I don't know, this gets me really excited. So less of a question, more of a statement.
I think this would be a great initiative to, and this ties into the release guide initiative that is, I think, wrapping up for operational resilience, where there's basically only the statement of, yes, you should have SBOMs. But I think providing good practices is really great, and we are tinkering around with a lot of stuff there. And also, thanks Justin for the heads up, and please ping me with information in CNCF Slack. I'm happy to also look into this stuff, because I don't want to build duplicated stuff, right? So because if it's something is already there, and if it's something that is already in OpenSSF, then I'm happy to use it.
Sounds good. And just also for anybody watching the recording, the project is SBOMIT. It is sbomit.dev. It is an OpenSSF project, and I will send you a link in Slack as requested as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. If there are no further questions, I thank you all very much.
Thank you. Yeah, this was awesome.
Agreed. All right. Yeah, kind of moving down the list for the day then. We have not had any other tag meetings as they've been canceled for KubeCon. So I don't think we have a prior one to review. I think the same goes for TOC meetings, but I will just pause here in the event that there's something that somebody wants to share from discussions at KubeCon related to tag or TOC things. I don't know that I have any to share.
I think we kind of went over one of the big ones, which was what Mario showed off, because a few folks had, like Joanna has been chatting a lot about this particular topic and how we as a group can be maybe a bit more involved.
Yeah.
Actually,
so
yeah, go for it.
The good thing is every tooling that we are building for CNCF is obviously public. And so basically, if you have an eye on the SBOM repo itself, there's also currently the tooling how we generate those in. So anyone is basically also welcome to have a look into this and to see how we do it. There's also some auto generation. So I pull the landscape, I get all of the orgs from the landscape, then I get all of the sub project or repositories that have a release inside of the orgs of the different projects, and that's basically then the curated list that I'm using for pulling it, getting the SBOMs, or getting the repos and then generating the SBOMs.
I just have like a general question for the group related to this, because a lot of the discussions we were having with Joanna and others was about SBOMIT potentially being the client, like the what would I call it? Like the project side part of this. Whereas as like CBOM is more of, I think, the place where all this ends up and gets pulled out of. And I'm just curious, like, how much awareness do other people inside of this group have about it? Should we perhaps at some point come and give a talk and do a demo and discuss what we're doing in like a few weeks, and just say, to kind of give the other idea about what at least our thinking is about how this could be solved, and then that way we can also get feedback from others here
For
if you have any.
SBOMIT?
Yeah, for SBOMIT.
Yeah, I would love a presentation about SBOMIT.
Me as well.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
think just like on the calendar, let me know some slots, and I need to pull that up, but we can go ahead and do that.
I personally think that would be wonderful. I'd be a little remiss. I've known of the existence of SBOMIT for some time, but it wasn't until SecurityCon last week where I think I had to call out I think it was SecurityCon, call out the meeting, and that's when it was like, oh, I should at least know how to speak to this in some way. And went and looked at it, and then a couple days later, talking to Joanna and being like, this feels like a good place for SBOMIT. So I would love a more of a intro / breakdown.
Yeah, especially on the like what section of the SBOM problem SBOMIT solves and what it doesn't solve and stuff like that. And I think also one of the things that would be useful also to get feedback from Mario. I know we run into this issue a lot as well, of like, what are the actual challenges we have in generating SBOMs? Like, I'm currently dealing with issues where every SBOM generator I'm using, for whatever reason lately has, or not lately, for whatever reason is like, if you give it a container image, it really gets confused about the minor version of Go inside that container image. And that's like really annoying, because it's like, I'm using 1.25.8, which fixes a bunch of vulnerabilities, but for whatever reason, every SBOM generator I try, and again, this is not necessarily purely SBOMIT sort of thing, but again, that sort of class of like, hey, SBOMIT helps with these things. Hey, these are the challenges we still have. It would be, I think, super useful, especially with stuff like CBOM, so we know what are the gaps, what are the challenges we might still have.
Yeah, I agree, especially on the when you have like multi-step container builds. What we started looking into is like build steps, and the problem that most of you are aware when you have a Docker file or you have a container file, and it's usually just like, yeah, that's the container with the version, or maybe latest, which is even worse. And getting then also like, okay, how can we burn it down to the build char of the container, which you can get when you have the digest out of the build log. What this means that basically your SBOM needs to look into the whole build process and analyzes the build log, which means that the build of the project needs to be public, which is fine for open source, but there's then limitation if you have like using this in closed source and stuff like this, and it's a containers are or artifacts are a whole other story. And then how deep do we go? How deep do we go in the rabbit hole? When is the point where it's enough? Is the point where it's enough when lawyers can stop suing you? Or is it how deep do we want to dive into this? Because eventually we will come around because of round dependencies.
Yeah, well, attend our talk and we'll talk about what we think the right solution to this all is. Yeah, we'll definitely put this on the calendar. Do we have a slot open? Do you want to try to nail down a slot now? Whoever's
The link is at the top of the notes doc. It's kind of hidden on the word here.
aha. Let's see here.
Looks like next week is open bow, but that's a short one.
I think the 15th would work if we want to do that. So if you want yeah, like the 15th will work to give an overview of the project, give a rough demo, and talk about some of this. If let me see, yeah, the other option, the week after it will not work, but the week after that possibly would. So I will talk with Marco, who will be doing this. Oh, wait, hold on. This would be a presentation. And make sure that this is okay. And yeah, I think this makes sense. John, what do you think about this? Do you think this time frame is realistic since you're also like eyeballs in deep in this?
Yeah, I think we should be. I mean, I think we've already got a lot of content already, a lot of ideas and things that we can chat about. So
Yeah, certainly if we are trying to give you the overview and talk about like what we do and don't do and what's in scope, it's fine. We can show a demo as part of this as well. So you can get an idea. It's like a real thing, not just a slide deck. Cool. All right, sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
To also jump quickly on Eddie's comment, I tried to put Kubernetes dependencies into a graph. It was basically a central star, and you just saw the universe around it, and it was not useful.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna attest to the usefulness, but just the craziness of like seeing it like as a map compared to a tree. Like the tree was somehow actually less useful because there's just it was yeah, it just S-bombs are hard. That's what my comment was.
Yeah. I'm still not sure what is harder, S-bombs or license hell, because license hell is also a different beast.
All right. Thinking through also other things that popped in my brain from KubeCon. I don't know who all was in the room. I know myself and John attended the Maintainer Summit tag workshop. And I think we walked through a variety of things, but we had, a tag security and compliance table essentially for going through a couple different. I think we went through a couple different projects, at least Argo CD and something else.
At least two. Yeah, we went through. Yeah, I can't remember.
So I took some notes of things that are kind of aligning to, I think, other broad discussion that we should cover probably another time. Throw those back into maybe our public channel. But there were, I think, questions raised around like projects that have never done a self-assessment and are, maybe graduated. Looking at those sub-projects, I think is a pretty hot topic for things right now of to like, how do we manage these things just generally across the landscape? I know there's a couple different conversations happening there and kind of in the same vein. How do we want to provide guidance for those to do things like the self-assessments or the joint assessments? We saw CubeStellar in our public channel talking about having done a self-assessment and merged it into their own repository. We should look at that, provide feedback for them. They're going to come and present, or at least do a short demo. And I think that's a time where we can get some insights and then also maybe take back some feedback. But nonetheless, I think there's a variety
yeah.
of good stuff here.
I do want to say, like, I'm getting overwhelmed with things. So if someone else wants to step in and help out, this would be a particularly good time for someone to learn the ropes. And it's not so much that I don't have time to help, like if people ask me questions, but it's more that I'm losing enough of the kind of mental space to remember that there's things I need to follow up on, if that makes sense.
I think that's completely reasonable. If I can throw that back at you just real quickly, what are the like best baseline criteria for evaluating a self-assessment?
So, because I know what it takes to do a joint assessment, I like, there's a lot of things that people do wrong. Like they put a lot of marketing speak, or they omit detail, or they just say, "Oh yeah, my thing doesn't have any problems." Which it's so I look for things like that and look for areas. Also, if there's like obvious suggestions to make that I know people would comment on, I will flag a few of those. For self-assessment, really all I'm trying to do, if it's not terrible, if then I always try to give like 4 or 5 comments just to leave something to see how quickly they respond, so I can get an idea of, are they going to be responsive if they want to do a joint assessment. And so then after they respond to that, then I'll say, like in a message usually, hey, I think this is going to be a pretty difficult lift or a pretty easy lift, or you know will require a little bit of work, a lot of work, just to try to give them some sense. And also I have a little bit. If it's really not at all the right thing, then I will maybe kind of point them at the book and say, hey, can you take a look at this, and try to explain, like, hey, I think you misunderstood this part of it. Can you look at like these other places and then come back and revise it? But that's rare. That's probably like 10% of projects have that happen.
I think that's fair. As far as action items there, I think we are on a trajectory for at least getting some context from that team, particularly around what is this? Is it a project? Is it a sub-project? We kind of got some of those answers. What does that mean? And then like what should next steps be on that self-assessment? We could do a lot of that, I think, synchronously at the next meeting, but nonetheless, I can follow up with some homework to do some prep ahead of that. So yeah, that was basically some thoughts from Maintainer Summit. I'll try to get those written down and published out somewhere so we can actually ensure that we take action on them. Really quick then, don't have too much time left. Triage of current issues. Looking through, do we have any new issues that are on our radar? Recipe cards were mentioned at our last meeting 2 weeks ago for the supply chain TCG. Don't see much else besides maybe a backlog security review that will need to be coordinated here in the near future? And then Caverno, joint assessment and driving that to completion. Okay. That kind of skipped over project updates. We were told Supply Chain Insights is going to be presenting at the next meeting, so we'll cover updates there. Are there any other project updates that people want to provide?
I have one for security controls. Since we did that quick presentation, I think it was a couple weeks ago, took some of the feedback that we got from Evan and Marina, and we reworked the mapping structure a little bit. And we're going to create some documentation on how to add new mappings for when the time comes. And then hoping to push all of that and have it marked as ready for review by the end of the week for everyone to take a closer look at. And that's it.
Got it. Cool. And Security Slam, I saw outputs from that saying everything went well.
No complaints. Everybody survived. A lot of good feedback, I think. And we have a lot of information now to be able to prepare and announce it in advance for the fall. That was the number one thing that I heard on the conference floor was like, oh yeah, I saw that in the last week. Like, it took like 6 weeks of announcements for some folks to even get it on their radar at all. One person asked, like, why didn't you make GitHub issues again? You did that a few years ago. That was super helpful. I was like, okay, we will take this feedback.
I think that's fair. It also sounds like it isn't going to be something that it falls off falls off the radar. I imagine we only have so long before we'll have to start planning for North America.
Yeah. And something that Marina and I were talking about was uh, at least for the fall, we're not going to need any new assets. There's we could just reuse everything, um, and just like change the dates and stuff. We'll want to make it fresh next year with like what the award images and things are like that are, but the assets that we made for this event should be able to keep getting recycled. It should be a lot easier than this one was. This one was kind of hard on me, but it should be a lot easier next time.
I like it. All right. We talked a lot about scheduling. We got things scheduled for the next few weeks at least. Is there any other go backs items you want to discuss before we end the meeting? All right. None heard. Mario, thank you for attending and giving us the presentation. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
With that, I'll see everyone next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.